another episode of Drinks and Dogs. Again, like, with the whole purpose of Drinks and Dogs is sharing different perspectives throughout the dog world and, and different just varieties of dog training because, obviously that's really important for everyone to understand. And today we have Eric Stambro and Ted Summers, two of the people that I respect, quite highly and like actually the most like in like the law enforcement and military working dog side. And these guys come from different backgrounds and they do different things now, and then there's tons of different stuff that they've been working on. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for being on here. Eric, Vaness K9, also HRD, and I'm pretty sure you have a lot of other things that you've been working on. And then Ted,
yes,
Torchlight and Torchlight, HRD, and then Working Dog Radio as well. So I mean, like there's tons of stuff to talk about, tons of things to do, but cheers guys, thanks for being on here. Appreciate you guys. And then let's get into let's just go ahead and talk. So with you guys with now doing with COVID stuff and all this other, how's that hindered you guys at all?
Not really. Torchlight does pretty much exclusively. So, well, I guess I can answer that a couple times. For the Working Dog Radio, it doesn't because we basically are doing this. So we're not talking to anybody. On the Torchlight side, because we're exclusively law enforcement or military, and my facility is closed, like security access control gate. We're an essential service because of the kennel and some other things. We have not experienced any disruption at all. My training night is still Tuesday nights. My guys still come out. I got a decoy school going on right now, and I have a training night tomorrow night that I'm integrating my training night and my decoy school at the same time. So it hasn't. HRD, it threw a little hiccup in. We canceled one, and a lot of that is kind of like par for the course. So we kind of expected that, but I mean, by and large, it hasn't affected us at all. So, Eric?
Yeah, so the police dog side of the house, I sold all the dual-purpose dogs in my kennel like the week before the quarantine, which was crazy how that happened. So I had some capital to work with. The doggy daycare side of the business, I had to close that. But the pet side exploded because I think people were home with their dogs and they're like, yeah, this dog sucks.
No, my dog's an asshole.
I'm not around this dog all day, ever. This dog's terrible. People are calling us in emergencies, like nonstop. So, I took the time to reload the kennel with floppy ears this time. I got 4 hunting breeds for free, and then I bought 3 German Shorthair Pointer puppies. And because I couldn't fly any dogs in from Europe, so I might as well get some, single-purpose dogs. And then I have a big new training facility. We call it the HRD campus. I also call it the Fun House. I've been spending a ton of money and time getting everything all ready. Kind of worked on my on the daycare facility is also the pet training stuff. I built up some fencing in there because we had dogs who were trying to gate dash. I had to change some things around, but yeah, in April I spent like $23,000 on the business, getting things ready. Yeah, but whatever.
That's why I saw that. I think when you started building that thing out, I was like, I think I DM'd you. I was like, damn, I need to come out and play.
God, he has a fucking gravestone in the basement. Like, no lie, an actual gravestone.
It's a grave. In the basement's a grave somewhere. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know about nice, but
the haunted building.
It's there, so there's that.
Didn't you guys do? You guys did like an HRD thing, like at some like haunted prison or something like that?
Oh, Moundsville, West Virginia. That was hairy. So Moundsville, it was in West Virginia. Moundsville, their prison special operation team, the guys that hosted us, and it was it's now there's nobody there. I think the last time they were there, it was like in the 90s, right? It was like when Clinton was in office is when the last prisoners were there. But it has a very storied history, and it was creepy as shit. And now they have a haunted house that's in there in October. So we were there, and I don't remember we were there. It was hot as shit, but we were running through the haunted house. We were using the haunted house to clear rooms. So you would like come around a corner and there would be a fucking giant ass monster. We were doing bites in the electric chair. It was sketchy and it was super dark. I mean, you'd be in there at noon and you go inside and I mean, you put your hand like this and couldn't see your hand. That's how dark it was inside. It was on a different level of like, it was creepy as shit. We need to go back there. Ken Brewer was the handler that handled a dog named Hammer, I think. And he was the head guy for them. But that was a good HRD. That was fun. We had pretty much the run of the facility. So they run tours there. And so they're running tours past us. We got these big, angry fucking police dogs like running around. I mean, they're on leashes, obviously. And I don't want to make it sound like they're just like out doing shit.
Yeah.
But like civilians are like, holy shit. What the fuck, and we're out here biting people and people are stopping and watching and, we're doing certain scenario. We're doing like one of our scenarios we call the drum circle and like right near the gift shop. And I mean, I got something extra that day. I got something extra that day, I guess. I don't know.
I saw some of the posts of that. I was like, damn, that looks cool as fuck, man. I was like, I wish I would be able to be out there and do that stuff. That's just cool, man.
That one was definitely fun.
So, actually, Howard we just talked about you, Howard, and you shaved your beard. You just
commented. I can't believe he shaved and Howard
shaved
his
beard. He looks completely different.
All right, so we'll go into like basic questions before. Eric, how'd you get started in dogs?
I was a cop and in a Canton Police Department in Canton, Ohio, very busy place, very, very busy canine unit. And I always wanted, when I got on there, two things I wanted to do was SWAT and Canine. And I got to do both. I got in the unit in 2005. 2010, I became the head trainer. Worked a dog and trained. 2014, I became full-time just training dogs there. Well, I did firearms and dogs. So my full-time assignment was dogs. It was pretty sweet.
Nice. And then you just went to, did you always do pets? Do you pets as well, or you just started doing pets?
Just started. I started doing summer of 18. I forget who I talked to, and it was like, there's like, for example, say there's 3 million dogs in the United States. There's like less than 1% of those make up police dogs. And, the competition, he goes, if, the revenue stream wise, you should look into the pets. And I did. And they were right for me anyways. This COVID stuff, proved it. When we had to shut down HRD and a couple other businesses, the pet side stepped up. So, but yeah, that's what I did. So now I've been mostly exclusively through the business working on the police dog side. I have other trainers to do the pets right now. So I have one right now, but it was kind of one of those emergency situations we talked about where people say their pets suck. So
we've had, I don't know how many times I've had the phone calls like throughout the day now, or like, oh no, my dog starts biting and everything, and like all this other stuff. So, like starting to bite me, starting to bite the kids. I'm like, well, I mean, shit. I mean, man, here. And how'd you get started with dogs?
So mine was a little bit of a roundabout deal. I never intended to be sitting here. I raced bikes, like bicycles, like pedals.
Nice.
I was in Europe racing at the time and taking a year off of college, and we were staying in a big ass house. And some big Belgian dudes came over and said, and this is 1999, 2000, somewhere in there. And big Belgian dude came over and was like, you want to catch dogs? I'm like, you mean like on my bike? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I didn't speak Flemish. I still don't. And because it sounds like they have a fucking mouthful of marbles. So I show up, and at the time I was fucking terrified. Like once I figured out what was going on, I was like, oh, fuck, I'm going to die. Like, this is terrible. And so that's what we did for, for several months, over 3 years. So about 18 months total I spent over there over 3 years. I came back and went to college. One of my good friends, I was going to college here in Tulsa. One of my good friends' dad was canine handler for St. Louis PD.
Nice.
And he told his dad, he was like, hey, my buddy was like doing this shit over in Europe and whatever else. And so I had no idea that I was being taught at the time, like how to be a good decoy. I didn't develop bad habits. I didn't do stupid shit. And even before that, I always had like hunting Labradors and a couple of other dogs when I was a kid. And even I remember like 10 years old going to something here in Tulsa called TDTC, which is Tulsa Dog Training Club, and doing agility work with a lab I had. Her name was Claire. It's a big ass black, like chocolate hunting lab. And I did agility work with her, and I didn't intend to be doing this. So, fast forward, I ended up getting a Malinois that I probably had no business having. Some sheriff deputy saw it. He was a canine handler. He was like, you want to sell your dog? I'm like, no. So I sold him anyway. And it just kind of like rolled into the whole thing. I moved to Colorado and worked up there, doing some other stuff and working for a sheriff's department and running some of their, doing some of their search and rescue work with dogs. And it kind of morphed into, I always had the bite works portion of the background. And it just never, not that I didn't ever take it seriously, but I never intended to be sitting like here doing what I'm doing. So I don't know, I guess it's kind of like a combination of like natural athleticism and the like refusal to have a normal job, and I like dogs. So I don't know.
it all came together. That's usually what I tell people about, like with us. And then you're still you're a PSA decoy, right?
Yeah, I am a senior level PSA decoy. I don't remember how many of us there are. There's not a ton. But yeah, I am a active PSA decoy, certified senior level decoy for a PSA. So yeah, in fact, I think I'm supposed to be doing a trial here. Well, I was, but who knows what's going on with Corona Apocalypse. So
that's so fun. That's like what so all my guys now are doing like PSA, like the two my two apprentices. So like they've been certified now for the last year or whatever, but like it sucks. So, like they both got certified, and all of a sudden like now there's like no trials.
Yeah, well, I think most of the time, and this is something like way above my pay grade as far as PSA goes, but because I'm a senior level decoy, the requirements for us are a little different in terms of maintaining our certification. So the new guys have to work more trials, which makes sense. Guys like me and like Josh Kirby and like Derek Rose and all those dudes, we've worked a lot of trials, and even the like emeritus guys, like the OGs from PSA, like Daryl Ritchie and Sean Siggins and Jeff Riccio, and all the guys like the next level above us have worked hundreds of trials. So we definitely want to spread the love and make sure that those guys get an ample opportunity to work a trial. And they do it now. There's some rule changes, not rule, but like some kind of, I guess, policy changes where we have certain senior level decoys that will be at a trial, and then we'll kind of like it help with even after certification doesn't mean you're done. So like, the senior decoys like kind of help manage the younger guys, the intermediates and the beginner decoys, and say, you're going to do this exercise and this, that, and the other. And we kind of coach them and do the whole thing while we're doing it. So it's something we've always done in the past. Like I remember working my first couple of trials under senior decoys under Derek Rose, and him helping me and telling me this, that, and the other. And then when I have new guys come on, and them saying, and then me helping them, as the judge has got 5,000 other things to worry about. So the decoys, we kind of like, we don't want to be a headache for the judge, first of all, and because a lot of the judges are also decoys. But we kind of want to make sure that we're doing things correctly, we're getting the field set up, or we're helping get the field set up with the club, and that, we're taking care of the shit that the decoys can take care of. So the senior decoy, just from trial experience and just from catching dog experience, kind of helps manage that whole other side of the trial. So it's kind of a big part of it, which I'm happy to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's like the one. It's like, Eric, did you do any sports stuff before?
Nope, not at all. Just the police stuff. When I got into the Canine unit, the only thing we ever did was sleeve and scratch pants. The USPCA has a sport wing, I guess, and we used to use their PD1 was their version of a I guess a PH1, PD1 as the graduation test to graduate the canine school. And when I took over as canine trainer, I was like, yeah, I'm done with that fucking shit. We're not doing that. You graduate because I said you graduated. And then, you know, then we do the state certification. But yeah, so all we did was just sleeve and scratch pants. Rarely ever we were in a suit. And then, you know, just kind of went from there.
So that's the cool thing, and that's like the stuff that I love, like that you guys do, especially with like HRD, is, you know, the adaptation of like putting sport decoys into police work. Like, do you guys ever feel like that's like there's a separation between sport decoying and police decoying?
There is. The skill sets are different. So, in fact, I'm right now. Today is the 25th, and I have a HRD. So I own HRD in Torchlight and in working on grading on some other thing. But HRD has a decoy school going on right now at Torchlight. So I had the conversation today. I have a couple of law enforcement guys, and then I have some sport guys there. And I said, you know, the skill sets for being a successful police decoy and a successful sport decoy are substantially different. And on top of that, when we start looking at the difference between the way that those dogs are evaluated, even with USPCA or NAPWADA or NNDDA or whatever certificate, just pick one. They're all fucking close with the exception of one. You know, those evaluations are very similar. Sports, on the other hand, are way different. You get Mondial Ring, French Ring, PSA, KNPV, NBBK, all of these suit sports, and then add fucking IPO or whatever it's called now, IPO and American Schutz into it. You know, you have these vastly different requirements for decoys, and the skill sets are magnificently different. So, for instance, today I have a bunch of cops here learning how to work leg dogs, and we have Jason Davis from Jacksonville, Florida, is one of the HRD instructors for the decoy stuff. Jason is a longtime fixture in the French ring community, is probably one of the better French ring decoys in the country. And I kind of made a joke today to these cops. I'm like, you guys have no idea who this motherfucker is, but this is one of the best French ring decoys in North America. And he's here teaching you how to catch fucking leg dogs or how to work leg dogs and how to teach leg targeting. And Eric is drinking. What is that?
Nice.
Don't mind me. I'm just making a drink.
So there is a unique set of skills that go into working law enforcement dogs versus sport dogs. I find that sport decoys for Mondial Ring, French Ring, and PSA tend to transfer the other direction, transfer into law enforcement better than the other way, right? So they're not mutually exclusive. And that's strictly suit time. I mean, most of these guys that are certified in either of those sports spend more time in a suit in a month than a lot of canine handlers will in their entire career. So, I mean, it's literally like time in a suit. I mean, it is what it is. Those guys are really fucking good at catching dogs. They're really good at working dogs. And if you get a decoy that's really good at building dogs as a training, if you want a trial decoy, you have, as a unit trainer, that motherfucker, I would pay him or find a way to pay him, them or her, them. And because that is such an underutilized and highly valuable position in maintaining a good patrol dog. And I mean, it's literally, these are the people that do it the most. I mean, it is what it is. Law enforcement companies or agencies have no problem getting outside shooting instructors that are not law enforcement. That's their job. Like, they teach shooting. Guys that teach defensive tactics, guys that teach defensive driving, guys that teach pit maneuvers. I mean, one of the best pit guys in the country was not a cop. He worked for the State Department. And so it's kind of one of those things, like police officers in general, especially canine handlers, you know, you're a cop first and a canine handler second, right? So being a police officer means that you're a fucking social worker, you know, you're a mediator, you're a police officer, you're a fucking babysitter. And then on top of that, you're a fucking dog handler, right? And sometimes you're a SWAT operator. So you're doing all these other fucking jobs. So there's no way that we can expect these people to be like awesome at all of these things. So we require some specialization, and to be successful, I think you need some highly specialized help from some very talented people, and that's where sport decoys come in, because they take direction well. They have to. If they're going to be successful in sport, they have to take direction well. So you can have a unit trainer or a very experienced handler say, I need this, or whatever this is. Like, I'm having a problem with this, whatever that. And a sport decoy should be able to be like, all right, well, I mean, I don't know how to be a police officer, and I don't know how to be a canine handler, but I know how to get this dog to go from A to B.
Yeah.
This is what we need to do. And that is a highly underutilized source, I think.
Eric, do you have any input on that one? Eric?
Nope. That pretty much said it all. We, you know, well, I guess I do have a little bit of input. One of the things that I changed with my training when I took over the training group, we, except for getting ready for a state certification, I eliminated all long sends. Now, if I get a sport decoy that comes out, sure, we'll work on it. But you put average swinging dick cop in a bite suit, he is hurting dogs. Maybe not right there then and there, but in the long run, they just don't catch well. I have a couple guys that can, and I trust those guys. But then what happens is I end up doing all the decoying for the long sends, and it sucks after a while. And so that's one thing we do at HRD is there are no long sends. We do none. And when I do a full class, I don't do any. It used to be that's all we did. Every single day when I got into K9, it was all long field bites. That's it. And maybe a bite in a building, but all long field bites. We got rid of that. But like Jake Scott that you had on here last time, Jake lives an hour from me, and we met through social media, and he went to decoy, and he came down. He was started in the Mondio ring stuff, and he decoyed the first day, I think 14 or 15 dogs, 3-4 bites per dog, all of them in a row. He took a break for a second, back in the suit. Now that's some shit that I do still to this day. Ted does it and everything like that. But no other cops are doing that. They're just not going to do it. So when the guy shows up, and if you don't know Jake, he's got tattoos on his head and his face and his neck, and he's Jewish, but he looks like a white supremacist.
Yeah. True story.
Jake. Yeah. But the dude, the sport decoys just flat out will catch more dogs. Will work harder. They just will.
Yeah.
The regular training handlers won't. They'll do 2 or 3 dogs. That's it. Jake did 14, 3 or 4, and I sent some motherfuckers after him too. Like he wore this suit. He wore this suit for the first time. I don't know. It was made of paper mache or something. And I sent his dog Vlad, who just retired Friday. Vlad is one of those murder dogs, right? Like just a killer. The way he bites, and you see when Vlad's biting here, he's actually swallowing. He's trying to eat you. So I hit Jake in a closet behind a couple real tall gymnastic mats, so the dog had to climb up over the mat. And Vlad goes in there and bites, and we get done. Jake goes, yeah, I need to change suit tops. I miscalculated that. And, but he went out to his van, grabbed another suit, 13 more dogs, over and over and over again. So that's, we find this a lot where police agencies close ranks and don't let, outside decoys in. That's a humongous mistake. They're just humongous.
I think and that's an important thing, even that we deal with over here is that the thought process of allowing civilian decoys into there as long as they're qualified and work with agencies, that's one thing that we deal with out here. It's okay, I get it saves you money on this part, but it's going to save your life on another way. As long as you teach, the dogs the proper things, because we have a lot of especially in California, we have a lot of, deep rooted, trainers in our industry over here. And we have a lot of bad techniques. I mean, I can't tell you, I won't mention any of the agencies or anything like that.
We know them.
But we go in and it's just bro, your dog's not it won't really bite somebody. You're actually hindering your officer's life by this, and that's a problem to me. That's why I think it's really important and that's why I really love what you guys are doing is that you're bringing in, sport decoys, guys who put the reps in, who do the work and do all this other stuff, and bring them into the police world. Cause I feel like that's, extremely important. Even just like, just people who decoy and decoy well, bring them into that world. So I think that's something that's needed and very important.
Yeah. And one of the main things that we're doing at the HRD decoy camps is getting the sport decoys to learn that there's a little bit difference of the police decoying stuff. For example, if you're just a straight up Mondio ring decoy or French ring decoy, grips aren't judged. So it doesn't matter if the dog's holding on with 1 tooth. It matters for us. So,
yep.
Right.
We get a guy. So then we work on, if they're a sport decoy that works in a sport where grips don't matter, the first day of HRD after Ted and I do our presentation, we're all grip checks and we have them do it. And then they're listening to us talk to the handler about that driving, punching in and the grips and things like that. And the sport guys pick up on it really quickly. Plus they're all very athletic folks.
Yes.
So that's another thing too. Like if you were to pick like an actual like sport that fit best for, law enforcement, military, what you guys do, what would you guys pick the sport? What sport would it be for you guys?
PSA. For those that don't know the background of PSA, it was started by Jerry Bradshaw, who owns Torchlight K9 out in North Carolina. He's been on the podcast several times. He has his own podcast, Controlled Aggression, has a book called Controlled Aggression. It's kind of like one of the godfathers of what I would consider modern canine shit. And his partner, Sean Siggins at Tar Heel, is also probably one of the best law enforcement decoys in the country, a fantastically decorated and talented canine handler in his own right. But PSA was started by that group. The exercises in PSA, with the exception of the long sends, so the fend off exercises, the environmental shit, that kind of stuff is a lot of the same things that we teach to patrol dogs in terms of skill sets. We showed patrol dogs much more variety, but in terms of what the dogs see environmentally and the pictures they go through to get to decoys and then having multiple decoys and all that kind of stuff, PSA is probably the closest thing we have to law enforcement, specifically the fend off, and specifically some of the passive biting. So for some of the ring sports, a passive decoy is an automatic signal to the dog to out. So as soon as you go passive, the dog automatically outs. There are several other things in PSA, and this is not a knock about any of the other sports or anything else, but we fucking hit dogs in PSA. We hit them with sticks, we hit them with fucking can curtains, and we apply a shit ton of pressure. In Eric, Eric will tell you too, and I did it today in decoy camp. We're talking about like what that pressure looks like to a patrol dog versus what that pressure looks like to a sport dog. So when I start training patrol dogs, when we're starting to teach a specific type of grip that we teach, I use positive punishment and negative reinforcement to reinforce those behaviors as a decoy. And sometimes that involves some pressure from the decoy to prevent the dog from doing things that you don't want them to do. And, we don't do that shit in sport work. So in terms of producing patrol dogs, the closest thing we have, I think, is PSA. The biggest thing about it too is that it's unscripted. So with Mondio ring and French ring and KNPV and IPO and all these other sports, like you have a rule book, so you have down the line, this is what's going to happen. You on one end you have IPO, which is scripted to the point where, leave it to the Germans to suck the fun out of anything. It is literally like they count the number of fucking steps they can track it. You go and IPO, you're judged on precision, like how close you can train to a prescribed standard. So you've got a tiny box, and how close you get to this prescribed standard is what this judged on. When you look at the IPO scores, you see that, and that, first through whatever place is separated by tenths of points. You contrast that with PSA, which is on the complete other end of the spectrum. So that sport is designed to showcase control. And in that sport, it is very rare. And I'm trying to think, and as I was thinking about this, I can't think of a dog that was handled by somebody that wasn't intimately involved in the training of that dog. So the handler is an integral part of the trial process where, you know, especially in the later phases of training and in the later phases of trialing, you're asked to do things as a handler where you have to make decisions. Can I bleed points here and still trial? Can I do this? Is the dog strong at this? Is he not strong at that? So you have to make decisions. You have to be intimately involved. And as a canine handler, you're presented with random shit all the time. And that's Eric's big deal about environmentals. And it's not the point of when would this ever happen? It's like it's already happened in training, so it's not a surprise. And in PSA, we look for handler control more than anything else, and how the handler chooses to problem solve. Like given a scenario that may be completely outlandish, and we say, how do you solve it? Given your dog's relative strength and weaknesses, and your strength and weaknesses as a handler, and there's no other sport that asks them to do that. Monitoring does in a couple of places, but PSA is an extreme version of that. And when you look at the upper levels, it looks like it's fucking out of control and fucking crazy, and it's because we're showcasing control. The big knock with PSA, and I'll address this right now because I know somebody's going to mention it, is that the dogs aren't, they're not real or whatever. So people mistake control for lack of vigilance. I've worked some PSA 3 dogs, and there's only 22 PSA 3 dogs in the world, and that's not for lack of trying. I've worked some PSA 3 dogs that will absolutely fucking wreck your world. You could be wearing a fucking bunny costume. They'll bite aliens. They don't care. And so this whole thing about control and it is a diminishment of like how a dog is real, and people are mistaking a lack of control for a lack of vigilance. A PSA 3 dog, that motherfucker's only purpose in life is to bite fools, and it's like putting a genie back in a bottle. And that dog's entire life is built around drive capping. And if that handler hiccups incorrectly or does something else, they're going to bite people. And they do not lack vigilance. I can't think of a PSA 3 dog that I've worked that wouldn't bite somebody. Like if the handler was like, fuck it, Stellan, they're going to bite him. Like it's like a foregone conclusion. And convincingly, one in Texas, the dog's named Kilo. He's going by Kindle now. And then Megan Hamby's dog, Felon. Like that dog would bite the shit out of you. She's super social, but I mean, if Megan was like, "Oh yeah, bite him," that dog would bite people. So yeah.
Like that's like my dog Cerberus. So literally, like I can point him at a tree stump and like, fucking, then it's there.
Exactly.
Dude, Eric, any other sports you think about, Eric?
No, I've got Jake hooked me up with 2 different Mondio ring dogs. I agree 100% with what Ted said about PSA being the closest. People. So there's West Penn Mondio Ring Club over this way. There's a lot of people up in Ohio that belong to it. And Jake hooked me up with a couple ladies that had dogs that, for whatever reason, weren't going to podium, or they were just, maybe the one dog, from moving from one station to the next, barks all the time. And, they're losing points. And she got tired of hammering on the dog. So I bought the dog. And so the 2 dogs that I've bought that are Mondio Ring dogs are amazing police dogs. Amazing. One's in Michigan and the other's in Aruba. Envy and Notorious were the 2 dogs. That's the only thing, guys. The sport guys with the names of the dogs.
Yeah.
Think forward that you might sell this dog. The dog's name was Notorious. I love it, and I sold him to Aruba. They don't give a shit. But in the States, they would have changed that name. I think I had one. Yes. I got a dog once named like Satan or some shit like that, and I'm like, so I changed it to Steven. It's close with a PH. But anyways, so yeah, but then on the sports side, I teach tracking, the beginning parts of my tracking like an IPO dog, not quite footstep to footstep, but nose down. I use food and I teach, that type of tracking. So you know, and I took that from IPO guys that taught me that stuff. So, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's the one thing I did take away from like when I was like a Schützen helper, like whatever 15, 16 years ago, and like digging in like the heel like into like the hot dog, like actually digging in so like the nose has to actually go in and drive and get it. Like that was like one of the cool things I took away from that, because just having them actually not just seeing it and like visually doing it but smelling for it. That was one thing I did like with tracking. I was like, oh, that's just dope.
Yeah. So real quick, I see on some of the forums and stuff, guys will get on there and badmouth sport. Police handlers usually will badmouth sport dogs. Sport in Europe is the reason why we're still able to get good dogs.
Yep.
Plain and simple. It's the reason we're able to get. There's a reason why those lines and those lineage and that genetics are still there. It's because of sport. That's it.
The
So
nastiest police dog we ever produced had an IPO 1. And it took him 3 times to get that because he tried to kill the judge during tracking and during obedience. And, I tell the joke, but it's really not a joke. One of our vendors goes over and I'm like, go to this KPV club or go to this MBBK club or go to this IPO club and be like, whose dog does everybody hate? And everyone there will point at this dude and be like, that motherfucker right there, everybody hates his dog because he doesn't out. He's a dickhead. He tries to bite everybody. And I'm like, perfect, I'll buy him. And they're like, oh, thank God. I thought I would never be it. Because at that point, they're faced with trying to title this dog, and it's going to be a low point dog, right? Because the dog is just a fucking dickhead. And maybe it's some of the skill of the trainer, some of it's maybe genetic, like who knows, right? There's a myriad of reasons why. But those dogs end up being fantastic police dogs. I got a dog from a dude near Eric, who was on a U.S. national team for IPO and on another country's team. And he had a dog, and he was like, this dog is just not good for IPO. And I'm like, fuck does that mean? Because I can't stand people that are like, oh, my dog is too real for sport, which is completely stupid. Yeah. And then I can't stand the thing like, they're like, oh, this sport dog can't do police work. So I was like, what the fuck do you mean? Right? Like, what does this mean? So I get the dog, and I know exactly what he means now. So the dog outs, and he outs. So in USPCA, for example, you have 45 seconds to out. All right, you tell the dog to out, you get 45 seconds, right? Like I can go to the bathroom and come back, and he still outs, like you pass. With IPO, as soon as they say out, like the chewiness and everything else, you start bleeding points, right? This dog did not want to fucking out immediately, and he was just a dickhead. And fantastic patrol dog. He's already got a couple bites, fucking people's days up in the county here in Oklahoma, but he's a fantastic patrol dog. He was just a little. I don't know if he was raised a certain way or if it's genetic or combination of both, but I understood exactly what he meant when I got him. And I was like, yeah, this dog is just not, and especially the way that this guy trained in terms of he didn't like using a lot of pressure. He let the dog to like self-discover a lot of shit. And the way the dog self-discovered was biting fools. So that was his default like thing. He was like, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to bite you. And that was his thing. And so that's what he does. And it's fantastic for dogs that are trained to find shit and bite people. And that's his default. But it was annoying as a sport dog or as an IPO dog. And so I kind of like, I get that. Now, had this guy been a different type of trainer in terms of using quite a bit more pressure, from what I understand, the dog would have been fine, but you would have bled points in other areas, like in terms of the way the dog presented himself and all this other shit that I don't care about. I just need him to bite fools and not be scared of anything and find drugs.
Yeah.
That's what I care about. If he outs, when I say, hey, out, and he's like, chomp, 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 okay, out, that counts. He said out. I didn't have a leash on him. I didn't tag him with knee collar. He's outs. We're good.
There's no points in the real world. It's just saving lives.
No, well, there's one. It's either win or lose. That's it. So, yeah.
Eric, anything on that?
No.
So this funny thing is like I came from so I started in rescue when I was 13 or whatever, because that was part of my community service, and then I went into Schützen as a helper because I was boxing at the time, and the guy who was mentoring me was like, okay, cool. You have good footwork, you can use this stuff. But there was the same thing I thought was just because he was training police dogs at the time, my mentor, and I was just like, all right, cool. But it's a sleeve. Like how does this translate to a real world thing? Like even back then, I thought about that, and there was a dog named like Yoshi that he was trying to get like something off of, and the dog he'd something he couldn't out, and he was like, you know, Ted said, like bleeding points, like he couldn't out. It's just he bit the cotton sleeve so hard that he just couldn't pop his mouth off of the actual fucking sleeve. Like he just hit that thing so hard, and I was just like, okay, like, you know, where do you go from that? Like as far as training, but I always thought that was funny because like people was like, oh yeah, sport dogs can't be real dogs, but I mean, I think it's always independent on the dog in general.
Oh, it definitely is dependent on the dog in general, and that is still the great debate in portions of our industry. And you know, this dog is too real for sport, which is code for I'm not a good enough trainer to do sport. Yep. And so, you know, there's a dog. There's several dogs in PSA. The one that I'm thinking of has one leg of his 3. The dog name's Kilo. He's an Arco Kiekert son, and that dog is as real as any patrol dog I have ever seen. He's to the point where he is dangerous. He is a dangerous dog. I am a good handler. I am a good trainer, and I know maybe a handful of handlers that I would turn that dog over to and say, yeah, he's going to be a good police dog. He would be a fantastic police dog with the right handler. Those handlers just don't really exist. And the highly specialized environment for that dog is so rare that the only and Kendall Bourne at St. Working Dogs owns him now, co-owns him or whatever. And the only environment that dog really serves is using him for breeding to try and get some of that we can control. He was handled and trained by somebody that is a magnificent trainer and handler, and he is just one of those dogs that, and if you listen to Mike Suttle owned Arco, and that dog was a fucking serial killer. And they're just not, that's not what we want as police dogs. That is not what I need. And that dog, Kilo will bite everybody. He'll bite, I mean, you know, I don't really want to tell the story about how Kendall managed to get a hold of him, but I mean, that motherfucker will bite anybody for anything. And he's stable in a sense environmentally, but his threshold for bullshit is about that thick. And I've worked him in several trials. I worked him the day that he got his first leg of his 3, or his only leg of his 3 in PSA. And I was shocked that his handler was able to have that much control on that dog, because it's a combination of defensiveness, and the dog has just insane amounts of drive. And was he a Duco dog? At some point. Yeah, Duco's been dead for fucking 20 years, though. I mean, everybody's dog is a Duco dog. I mean, that dog's been dead since Clinton was in office. I mean, I had a Duco dog at the time and didn't realize what it was because it was 2000 and something, 2001. And at the time, nobody knew who the fuck Duco 2 was, and nobody cared. I mean, BRN 60 is one of the biggest stories. It's kind of like there's a really popular wine in France that people emulate all the time, and they're like, oh, this dog or this wine. They've sold more bottles of this wine than were ever produced. And Duco, like, there are a few wines I think that are still alive or that are still kind of like into the Duco side, but Duco's been dead for so fucking long that, I mean,
it's gone.
Yeah, and at the time, and so the trick was, and Eric, we need to have Rob, the guy that owned Duco 2's name is Rob. And we need to have him on the podcast to talk about him. But, you know, at the time, that dog was nothing special. He was not a special dog. And you'll even hear Rob talk, when you talk to Rob about him, he was like, you know, he lived in the house and he was like a fucking normal ass fucking dog. Like, he wasn't just some fucking outsanely crazy specimen. The one thing that he did
outsanely. I think you said outsanely, like if that's a new word. Mark it down. That's a new Ted.
That's the new one.
Outsanely. I think what he did do was reproduce
the new
himself.
T-shirt.
Yes, exactly. He reproduced himself very well. So he was a very good producer, which is what made him very popular. So they knew that they could breed him to other females, or in pretty much any good female, and the puppies would turn out great. I have a dog right now that is a fairly closely, to Duco, fantastic patrol dog, bad motherfucker, right? 127-pound Malinois, huge dog, and fairly closely related to Duco. And the dog's BRN is 27195. You can go look him up. And we've bred him twice. The puppies are fucking garbage. I know why they sold him, because he has no value other than biting fools and finding drugs, which is great because that's what I need. But I got this dog, I'm like, why the fuck did they sell him? I know why. His puppies are trash. Terrible.
They can't produce.
No, can't produce himself. We had 2 litters, 20 puppies total. We had 1 male, and they all were pretty not good at all.
Like, that's the thing that I like about, like, I mean, obviously I don't know if you guys work with a lot of them, but like, devil dogs. Like for me, like I mean, we produce with Gold Coast, like the Rodneys. We, in the first litter we did with them, we did 8 dogs, and all 8 dogs worked. And they're all consistent in it. And then obviously we produce after that. But I mean, like Devil, for the most part, I feel like he's been a pretty consistent producer for us, at least. Have you guys been working with any of them?
Well, we have a Tony Montana son at the kennel right now. Which
How's that
Tony
going?
Montana, he's special. He's a special animal. He likes to bite people. That's his favorite pastime. He likes to chase things. He's a nice dog. He's a very nice dog. I also had a devil dog, or what I think was, at the kennel that had some issues that I wasn't too pleased with, but namely the whole handler aggression thing. But I'm not sure if it's genetic or if it was handler created or if it was trained created. But by and large, they have a shitload of drive, they're environmentally sound, and they're typically healthy and big, which is what we want. So,
Big monsters. Eric, anything?
No, I own a Dutch Shepherd named Russo. He's down in Tennessee. I sold Russo as a dual-purpose patrol dog to an agency in Tennessee. He bit a backup officer and a sergeant and was fired. So I took ownership. I left him with the handler. She and I are good friends, and she has him down there. And I'm telling you right now, I'm probably biased, but I think Russo's the best Dutch Shepherd in the United States myself. He's done 2 litters, bangers, all of them, just big, giant, driving meatballs. Russo's unbelievable. So we're going to be doing more breeding with him coming up. I don't get into all that shit. I literally don't get any of the puppies or anything like that. I charge a breeding fee. People can collect them if they want. Because unlike Ted likes to say, I hate puppies. I'm not trying to say that. Puppies. I'm not a Satanist. I'm not like a psycho, but I just don't want to deal with puppies. So I don't do, so the girl who has them, she takes them places and we do the breedings. Daniel Morris down in Texas got a great litter out of him. And there's a lady named Carla in Tennessee that's got a real nice litter from him. And they're just drivey psychos, man. I love that dog. And because I'm nobody, nobody knows him. And I'm telling you, he's better than almost every Dutch Shepherd you'll ever meet.
That same thing with that dog I have right now, who's sort of unsold. I'm going to breed him to a female I got from Kendall that's part of the Van Leeuwen lines. So it'll be a nice outcross, and we'll see. But
Nice. There you go. I have to put you guys in front of Ozzy one day here pretty soon.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
So your mistake is that you sent pictures. No thanks.
I sent Eric a picture of him puncturing a campfire he didn't sleep. I was like, it's like
another,
awesome.
Not the first one. It was another,
yeah. And then Wilson sent me a special fabric suit like the one that's like puncture and stab proof or whatever.
Right.
Ozzy just got through that, so that's been fun.
Yeah,
So,
Sure. Sign me up.
yeah. It's another gnarly devil son. I'm like, oh, it's so much fun. Plus being wrecked by the muzzle hits it's been a great time doing this.
It sure looks.
Yeah, it's been a great time. So, all right, we're getting into Q&As now. And I know this is gonna be a fun one for both of you guys, but because I do a lot of personal protection work, a lot of people ask me the question about transfer bites and all these other things. So, obviously, it's bad for multiple reasons. But what I would like to have you guys explain, as far as you guys are in law enforcement, you guys do this stuff like constantly. And you guys, know the repercussions, policy and procedure wise, and everything like that. Go ahead and explain, and use the danger of a dog popping off, and being exposed again. So go ahead and I'll let whoever wants to go first on this one just take a hold.
I'll jump first, real quick. So the transfer bite thing is transfer bites is this supposed system where the dog's on this bite. And then this hand comes around with a weapon. The dog lets go and bites this. And then if this comes around with a weapon, they bite that. They bite whatever the offending appendage is, right? It doesn't work for law enforcement. It's no good. These guys who do this training, and they're saying they're training police dogs with it, sell no police dogs. And they
or very, very few.
Yeah, very few. They try to say that they're that dogs are getting murdered all over the United States while they're on a grip. It's not true. Fake, made up, bullshit wording, bullshit. They have no statistics. It's fake. It's not true. That's a person who has never had a dog in a fight for real, on the street, under a porch, biting a dude inside his armpit, pulling his bicep muscle out of the hole in his arm, trying to say that I will stab and kill your dog while he's biting me. I bet you don't. I bet you don't. So what it is mostly I find it's an excuse made up by guys who have weak ass bullshit dogs, horrible, terrible dogs. So I'm sure there are some trainers here in this country that are training guys to do that transfer bites that are awesome killer dogs. There's probably a few of them. They stay in their lane and and they're doing whatever. But like this fuckhead up in Canada who's training this bullshit, his dogs are garbage. Or his videos.
Fucking terrible.
He probably has sold a couple decent dogs, but his videos are terrible, horrible, nerve bag, pussy ass bitch dogs, hand biting sissies. I
gotta agree.
That's it. That's how that started. That's how that started. Is an excuse for your bitch ass dog letting go. Guys there are guys that make claims that their dogs can tell the difference between a gun and a cell phone. Fuck you. You can. That's bullshit. Are you kidding me? That dog can't tell the difference between his butthole and the other dog's butthole next to him. And you're going to tell me he can tell whether you pulled out a lethal weapon or a cell phone? Human beings fuck that up.
Yeah.
All the time. Cops are shooting dudes with cell phones. They thought it was a gun. And you think a dog is supposed to? Come on.
Yeah, and on top of that, they're like, oh, they're taught to fight the man, they're taught to fight this and fucking. So here's the trick. Like, we have some of the best fighters in the world, Evander Holyfield, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, all the MMA, like some of the MMA guys. The best people in the world have trouble reading human intentions. That's why they get punched in the fucking face. Meanwhile, we have an animal that wants to lick its own asshole and eat cat shit no matter how well it's trained, but we're supposed to believe that some fuckface in Canada or Utah or wherever that other dickhead lives is going to be able to train an animal to read human intentions. So that's my first problem. One, it's anthropomorphism, which is fucking stupid. The second portion of it is Eric mentioned, right? Like, so the dogs are constantly looking for an out. They're constantly looking for another target to come through. When they do that, grip suffers, right? So in law enforcement, because of Florida versus Harris, because of Kerr versus West Palm Beach, and because of some other cases I'm not going to mention that are coming up in some of the other circuits about the damage it's caused, you end up with a paper trail of a dog that isn't serving a purpose as far as law enforcement goes. Is actually a liability in terms of damages caused and in terms of biting backing officers. So, you know, if you're constantly waving your fucking arm around like a fucking ninja, the dog is going to transfer. So, which is terrible. Because of that, the dogs have a terrible grip because they're constantly expecting to transfer to another appendage or whatever else. So the secondary portion of this is that typically the grips tend to be pulling, which is bad for equipment, which is bad for teeth. And I was just in Indianapolis last week doing a decoy school. They have some dogs that are going to be retired because their backs are bad from pulling for their entire career. So, you know, you start looking at the wear on equipment, the wear on teeth, the wear on backs. And admins love spending money on dogs. They don't. They don't like spending money on equipment. They don't like spending money on dogs. They don't like sending dogs to the dentist. Fuck you guys. Fuck Canine and everything else. All you guys do is cost us money. You train all the time. So the ramifications down the line are that a dog that transfers is also a liability in an apprehension situation. So in reality, when a dog bites somebody, two things happen. One, we verbally recall the dog and we then move in as an arrest team and we fucking cuff the dude up. Or you roll up and you cuff him under power, which means that you fucking shit slam him to the ground and you cuff that motherfucker and then you take the dog off. The problem with that is that anytime a dog sees an appendage swinging in, it becomes a secondary target. And I have an actual story about this. So in a department close to here, they weren't doing actual transfer targeting, but they were teaching a dog to out because the dog had outing problems. So they were teaching him to transfer from one decoy to the other. So I said, you don't see that like this is going to cause an issue. And of course I wasn't a police officer, so I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. So literally 6 days later after this, they have a bite with one of these dogs. Dog transfers and bites a backing officer, then transfers and bites the handler as he comes to try and take control of the dog. Meanwhile, shitbag gets up and runs off into the night. He then gets tracked again and gets bitten by one of my dogs who does it correctly. So the dog then ends up biting 3 people in one night because he thought that he was supposed to out and move, not because it was a transfer bite, but because that's how they were teaching the dog to out. They were doing the bouncing decoy game too close. So you end up creating liabilities. And at that point, admins really love when dogs bite backing officers, right? Ask Eric about Russo. That's how Russo fucking fired. So not from transfers, just because that dumbass stuck his hand in his mouth. So, you know, and then the other portion of this too is that Eric is 110% correct. You're hiding nerve issues. You're hiding dogs that shouldn't be there in the first place. And then, so when people talk about how the dog protecting himself, like we call these canine teams. So when we do HRD, there's a lot of scenarios. When we do HRD, there's a lot of scenarios that involve the handler as well. So we're asking the handler to be involved in fighting with somebody with the dog. So when you send a dog by himself and he transfers and does all this other fucking happy horse shit, you completely leave the human element out of it. So I tell people that advocate transfer bites, including the fuckfaces in Canada and that goofball in Montana, I'm like, do you really think that your dog or that one of your dogs could combat me, or one of my dogs that doesn't transfer could combat me and the dog at the same time? You as a decoy, like I send my dog to you, are you going to be able to handle the dog and me at the same time? Because I tell you, like as a law enforcement officer and my handlers, the dog's there and you better believe you're getting rained elbows and fucking knees seconds after my dog gets there, and I'm going to fucking pound you. So you're going to pay, as Eric says, you're going to pay the fucking tax. You're getting dropped. So are you going to fight with me and the dog? And they kind of look at me. I'm like, because we can do it. I mean, and we do it. We do a scenario in HRD called the Island, and it is specifically that. And they don't have an answer for it because it's a scam. It's snake oil, and it's a fucking smoke and mirrors. It's bullshit.
There was one of them guys saying, and I used to watch his videos, and I was like, oh, these are cool. A lot of it was just environmental stuff, rope bridges and swimming and everything. Cool, man. Great. I love that stuff. Then he posted a video. This is several years ago, of his dog supposedly dodging bullets. He was shooting a rifle at the dog.
Live round.
Downrange. Handler was downrange.
He's shooting at his friend, by the way.
He said live, probably simunition, but maybe not. He's shooting a rifle at the dog, and he's just shooting, on either side. But he says the dog is dodging the bullet. I'm like, you're fucked. You're gone. I'm done with you.
He had rec specs on those, so it was cool.
They have massive followers too. But and again, all of the transfer bite people, all of them say the same thing. Dogs are police dogs are murdered all over the United States while on a bite. They get stabbed and shot. Absolutely not true. It is not true.
And that's
not true. There might be one or two.
If Eric says it best. If your dog gets shot, it should be a fucking surprise. Gun calls are not dog calls. And if you suspect somebody is armed, dog's there for location only, then you gas them or you shoot them. I mean, we don't send dogs knowingly to armed suspects in law enforcement. Military, different deal altogether. But in law enforcement, we do not knowingly send dogs down line to suck up rounds. They're not there. That's not what it's for. I mean, the one thing that they have on their side is time. They can literally just gas the fuck out of somebody and wait. We don't do that. That's not what the dogs are there for. They're there to find somebody and eliminate areas where somebody's not hiding, and then we gas the shit out when they come out. But dogs are not sent to fight with people with fucking guns.
Well, that's like the one thing we deal with a lot with, like, when it comes to like personal protection, because a lot of people have like an issue with personal protection dogs and all this other stuff. But like, we live in a state where even guns are limited to people here. So like, for me, like, we deal with a lot of different personal protection dogs. So that's the one question I always gets, like, okay, cool, like, we have a personal protection dog, but you have to learn how to personally protect your dog as well. So you got to be in the fight. You got to learn how to, the dog's got your back on this point, but you have to learn how to defend your dog too. Like, go through there and maintain that subject, the perp and all that stuff, and handle them to get them obtained. So you limit the liability legally, because it's obviously a huge liability, but two, you limit the damage to your dog that's going to happen during a fight in general. So like, that's like one of the things I always like tell people. It's like, hey, like, you're not just sending this dog to completely clear out the situation. This is just part of the process of helping you be safe. And what you guys do with law enforcement, what you guys perfectly explained, is that it's part of the process of actually handling it. It's not the end all be all.
Yeah.
I have a question for the people that are watching this. Do I look fat in this?
Yes.
Thank you. See, Ted's on it. Ted will come.
Yes.
I feel like I do. Anyways.
You just look like you're puffy on the chest, bro.
Right, that's what it is.
All right. Next question. Preferable dual purpose or single purpose dogs?
I assume they mean like single purpose, not dog detection only. So like one job, like one thing, right?
Yep.
Or like one dog, one job. So It's really common in like Europe, right? So like in Holland and Belgium and France and all these other places where all these dogs come from, they have a very small population. They have a very small land mass, and it's very easy for them because they have a lot of resources relative to that. So they put in positions where they have a dog that tracks, and they have a dog. You have one handler, like so. Our buddy Yoris, Eric and I have a buddy named Yoris who is Belgian Special Forces. He lives in the United States now. He lives in San Antonio. But they have dogs that track, dogs that find drugs, dogs that find bombs, dogs that bite fuckheads, and then dogs that find currency. Dogs that they have, and one handler may handle several dogs. They are in a resource-rich environment, so they are not dog poor, to put it mildly. So when you look at the United States, it's fundamentally a different way that we police here. Every department, with the exception of like LAPD, LA County, like giant fucking cities. Every department is fucking strapped for money. They're always strapped for money. They always bitch about it. Like, it's always a thing, right? And so when you look at canine as a whole in the United States, they're primarily used as a tool for detection, whether it be contraband, explosives, human beings, and then as an additional thing, use of force. So we have to stretch the amount of money as far as possible. So it doesn't make sense. Now, there are, I mean, I've met, in fact, in Indiana, we were just there were several guys up there that they handle single-purpose bite dogs. And it just is, that's the way the department does it. So keep in mind that they're fairly close to a giant vendor, which also helps. So, you know, and there are places in the country that have single-purpose bite dogs. There are places that have single-purpose tracking dogs. But a vast majority of dogs in the country are single-purpose narcotics, or they are single-purpose or dual-purpose narcotics and apprehension. And that is to stretch the amount of money that resource expends over the greatest amount of time and the greatest amount of usage. So ideally, yeah, I would love to be like, yeah, one handler needs 3 dogs because I'm in the business of selling dogs. But that's not the reality of the situation, is the way that the United States polices.
What do you see, Eric, in that?
Dual purpose. I don't if they're to work the road in a car, not a school resource, not at a courthouse or something like that, I don't understand not having dual purpose. It makes no sense. Yeah. There's still old trainers that say you cannot have a dual purpose explosive dog.
Yeah.
Fuck out of here.
Meanwhile, Afghanistan and Iraq and every special operation
filled with them.
Yeah,
right,
I mean, like literally, like the multi-purpose canine program in any branch of special operations, kind of like.
Yeah. But that guy will tell his bosses that they'll buy it because they don't know. So
yeah,
I do see there are a lot of agencies, bigger ones, that use single-purpose bite dogs. Okay, that's cool. I get it. But single-purpose detection dogs that just work the street make no sense. 0 sense. And this is going to offend a lot of people, but I don't see the point in the hounds.
For law enforcement.
Yeah, I don't
search
see
and
the point.
rescue. Search and rescue. Yeah,
you guys are awesome. You should all have whatever dog you want, but I don't see the point in a guy working the street with a dog that tracks human beings and doesn't bite them. And that's a whole nother thing. There's a whole group of people that don't believe that the tracking dog should actually be biting the person that they find. That's not realistic, in my opinion, in law enforcement. They want you to find that dude and apprehend him. This whole thing with the proximity alerts and all that, that's great. It's just not realistic as far as the expectations of the law enforcement agency. They want you to find the guy, bite him, dudes go up and arrest him. That's what they want, period. I just don't, the hounds, the tracking hounds, it doesn't make any sense to me. I see a lot of guys down south, and I see pictures, friends of mine will post pictures of dogs in their group that are tracking criminals, hounds, and they find them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Come on, man. I worked a dog for 3 years who wouldn't bite, and I tracked a lot of motherfuckers with that dog and found a lot of people, and it's unbelievably dangerous when I'm the one who's there with him and I have to fight that dude, and I have a 3-year-old toddler that doesn't talk running around me, wrapping me up in the leash, licking my face while I'm fighting a dude. Dual purpose. And
it's one of these. It's a resource question too. It's one of those, because we hear a lot of it about, well, not anymore, but like the bark and hold thing versus find and bite, and then the whole tracking dogs that don't bite thing. And there's a pervasive myth that a tracking dog that doesn't bite won't, or a tracking dog that bites won't save you. No, you're right, they won't, especially with somebody that's armed. But there's no sense in having a tool there and removing that option of force that is very valuable. And then you effectively also remove the handler. So great, you've tracked him and you've found him and you've done this shit. And at this point now, the handler is sort of worthless. I mean, there's no reason for him to even fucking be there anymore. And he's managing the dog, which is his job. I mean, he's a fucking canine handler. I mean, Eric and I say that all the time during HRDs. I'm like, you're a canine handler, not a canine announcement maker. You're a canine handler. You're not. I mean, you cannot handle a dog and shoot at the same time. You get guys in like top tier military units that are the best murderers in the world, and not even those motherfuckers can handle a dog and shoot somebody. And that's their job. Their only job is to kill people. Like, well, I mean, for the most part. And, I mean, so expecting a normal police officer to be able to track a felon and then have to get engaged in a gun battle with a dog that doesn't bite is just fucking beyond me.
The liability.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. So there's a lot of people that rely on, and people that I respect and that are really good at what they do. And, but I just fundamentally disagree. I don't agree with or like teaching dogs to, in law enforcement, search and rescue, completely different. But in law enforcement, I do not believe in teaching a dog to track that will not bite somebody. I just don't, because no matter what some fucking captain or undersheriff or whoever tells you, they'll promise you all day long, oh, we won't use them to track felons. Motherfucker will be out of school for a week, and some dickhead will run and get stopped by the troopers, and they're like, call the dog, go track him. And then then the handler is stuck out there with some trooper with a gun, with a long rifle that's never tracked before in his fucking life, and is too worried about watching the dog, and they're tracking somebody that should be shot. So now it might as well just be one dude out there with a rifle. So no, I don't believe in fucking doing that.
And then speaking of that, narcotics, dual purpose narcotics dogs, as far as being able to detect and bite. What do you guys think about that?
Yes, that's the point. Yes.
Yeah.
There's thousands of them. That's the thing. You will do, probably, I was going to say you do more of the sniffing part, but I don't actually think that's true. Our dogs on a shift, so my department, 7 dogs, 6 are dual purpose. One's a single purpose drug dog. He works in a task force. All he does is packages. So I get it. But the dual purpose dogs, because I worked them on the street, we do more building clearings, alarm clearings, all shift long than the sniffing part. Yeah. Single purpose dope dog, if you worked on I-95 and you were strictly on a drug task force, okay, maybe. I still think you should have. I'm a big believer in have and not need. Big believer in it. If you never bite anybody, at least you had the ability if need be. Because the handlers want to work, right? Like he was saying, like Ted was saying, you get that dog out and he's a single purpose, non-biting dog. We're not going to track felons. And then a felon runs and that handler wants to work. He wants to do stuff with his dog. So he's going to track that dude. I don't see the point in it. I would rather, if they're going to be single purpose, I'd rather see them just be single purpose bite dogs.
Yeah, single purpose bite dogs all the day. But that's my thing anyway. Like I'm a good detection trainer because I have to be. But I mean, one of my local dogs, I'm going to show you this text. This text was sent to me last night at, I don't know, about 11:30, about almost midnight. And you can see there is 178.3 grams of some unidentified substance. 2 nights before that, there is also 180.3 grams of an unidentified substance, which I'm assuming is meth or coke. Yeah. That dog is in the county that my parents and my sister live in, and he's also part of the Marshals Task Force, and his handler is part of the SWAT team. That dog has over 30 bites and fucks people up on the regular. And that dog is the most versatile resource that department has, short of a patrol car. And it is the only resource that can be used to find narcotics, find people, be a use of force option. I mean, what the fuck does a firearm do?
Yep, same thing.
What the fuck does pepper spray do? What the fuck do handcuffs do? There is only one out of every tool that is available to law enforcement, maybe outside of a helicopter or a car. The canine is the most versatile tool that is available to law enforcement. End of story. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, like, I've got, like, I mean, this dog's last bite was one that, I mean, this was his last bite. So, like, the dog is a use of force option. They find people, they find drugs. Done deal, right? So it's a force multiplier. And you're effectively limiting the amount of time and money you're expending searching for people, searching for contraband, and dealing with attorneys after the fact. So canine is always going to be important.
Well, that's one thing. Like I've always kind of like constantly talked to like the counties and the people that we deal with. I'm always like, it's like you're investing all this money in like lethal guns and all this other stuff and training. It's like, but you can invest a lot more money into like actually canine training where you can detain somebody, use it, and it's the most versatile way of doing it. Like you literally can send a dog on drugs, and then all of a sudden like the dog has the same way to apprehend. And you can use pain compliance to do all of those things. So I mean, like that's one of the cool things. That's one of the things I love about like what you guys do, is that we're kind of expanding and broadening the horizon when it comes to canine training. All right, so this is probably a question more for Eric. The differences between canine training and pet training.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot. You should say more. I think it would be better the similarities between the two.
Similarities.
Yeah. So because the differences can be quite vast. We tend to let the canines get away with a lot more because we want them to be a little bit wild, so to speak. Like the 2 6-month-old GSPs I have in the kennel right now are fucking assholes. And yes, Katie's right in the comments. Pet training pays more. True. But so the differences or the similarities would be some of the behavioral problems that the dogs have are caused by the pet owners, are also caused by the dog handlers. We talked about this in something else yesterday, the too much affection and too much freedom of movement, letting a dog, a canine, sleep in your bed. Now, listen, again, it's just like everything. If your dog has no behavioral problems, okay, great. But like the leash reactivity in police dogs that we think are just aggressive asshole police dogs are actually dogs that are struggling mentally because they're not getting enough mental stimulation. There's too much freedom of movement. Their kennel's too big, not enough time in the crate, not enough time doing duration downs and that type of stuff. All pet dogs are all the same, but we put up with more of it on the police dog side because we think that's what they're supposed to do. Trust me, I didn't know any of that. I have all those dogs in my training group that the dog's coming in to do a detection problem and everybody has to get out of the way because he's going to take cheap shots and tag people. Maybe, but he sure acts like it on a leash. We think the dog's just an asshole, but he's actually just reactive, right? Like this little dickhead right here, right? He looks like a 30-pound police dog on a leash when I got him. He goes off on everything, everybody and everything. And you'd be like, wow, you're a little asshole. You're a mean little nasty. He's actually not mean, right? Same with the police dogs. Some of the police dogs, man, if the handlers would change some of the relationship things at home, would probably actually be a lot easier to manage and are more social than they think. Like there's a dog, for example, that retired from my department a couple months ago, my old department. He had a bunch of street fights and things like that and was a douchebag at training days. Like just an asshole on the shift at training, like a motherfucker. But if you went to his house, he'd let you pet his stomach and play with him. And I mean, he wasn't. But the handler, he didn't know, you know what I mean? And I didn't really know, to be honest with you. And he had a 10 by 20 kennel and was getting tons of fenced-in yard freedom, just running for hours in the fenced-in yard. You know, all the pet dog crap.
Yeah.
There's small changes that a handler could make good. Because listen, I worked one of those dogs. It sucks. It's a pain in the ass. And it's like, dude, we're going to go do article searches, and you're ready to murder everybody around you. You know what I mean? But then you come to the house and he's good to go. So it's just, so I should say the similarities, that problem, the mental problems are the same. But you know, the differences obviously are the difference in the canine world versus the pet world is we get the canines who will work for a ball, a toy, or food, whatever. They'll do anything. So you kind of get spoiled that way. They'll do anything. Like this dude here, he'll work for food. Even though he's fearful and afraid of everything and all his bullshit, dude is voracious for food. This guy, he won't do shit for nothing. He's afraid of everything. So, you know, you have to get more creative. You have to get a little bit better at it. And so I love that dude. That dude's the place champ. He's been here 22 hours today.
Love it. That's like my dog Marilyn.
Yeah, it just doesn't move. But so that's pretty much it. I don't know. And one of the big things is when you're on both sides of the house is if you get a police dog and you're training him and he's just not going to work. The department will get him another dog. But when you have the pet dog, that's their dog. There is no other dog. You have to fix that dog. So you have to get really creative. You hear that noise? That's a weird noise.
Yeah, you know. Is that on your side, Ted?
Like, sounds like a mini bike starting up or a slow chainsaw.
Right.
Anyway, but that's it. That's pretty much it.
And Ted, you've never been on the pet side, right?
No, I don't really do pets. We've done a few here and there, but I definitely do not. I don't have a facility. I mean, we have a facility, but I don't have a facility like Eric. We don't. I'm not open to the public. Like, I don't. We get like inquiries. I don't do personal protection.
Me neither.
And you know, and I mean, I have in the past, but it's been very like specialized circumstances that I'll do it. But like, we don't. Generally, and on top of that, Oklahoma's really weird too. I don't even refer people. I'm like, I just don't do it. Like, I'm just not interested in doing it. I don't do pet stuff. I don't do, because we're busy enough with just law enforcement that I'm like, all right, well, I mean, you want me to train your dog for personal protection? It's mainly personal protection or for pet stuff. And I'm like, I don't have the staff to do it. The staff that I have are worried about detection because, you know, single purpose work is what pays, single purpose detection is what pays the bills. I mean, rarely do we get a chance to train single purpose bite dogs. We train a fuck ton of single purpose drug dogs. And
nice.
So, you know, I mean, if I got to pull somebody off of that to train a dog to sit and shit outside, and I'm like, you know what I mean? You know, as much as I would love to help you, and it's not my thing. Now, pet shit, I do have friends that I refer them to locally, but it's not my thing. I don't do it. And I tell people all the time, I'm definitely not a well-rounded trainer. I'm a good trainer as long as it involves finding stuff or biting people. But people are like, how do you fix dog aggression? Like, that's a thing now, like in Canine, right? Like, or in dog, like, we fix dog aggression. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, how do you do? I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. I mean, you know, and it's like people hang their hat on, like, oh, I can fix dog aggressive dogs. I'm like, why? Like, why fucking bother? Like, just don't let them interact with other fucking dogs. Like, that's I own a dog. He's in my bedroom right now. He's a total cocksucker. He's 9 years old. That motherfucker has tried to kill every dog he's ever come in contact with. You know how I trained him? I didn't. I just don't let him interact with other dogs.
He managed.
Problem fucking solved. And he's great. Like, he was out here a minute ago. Like, and he's out right now. Like, he's social with human beings. He is just not social with other dogs and animals in general. So, I mean, he kills anything. He's killed cats, squirrels, goats. Like, he's an asshole. But I'm like, oh, you know, like, and it kind of goes to this whole thing like, oh, all dogs can be rescued and fixed, and I'm like, no, that's not my thing. I mean, I'm sure there are. I can't speak intelligently on it, but I know there's probably somebody watching this that's gonna be fucking mad.
Oh, I mean, but like that's the cool thing about it is like
I don't care.
different perspectives in it. I mean, like you guys obviously thrive in like what you guys do. Like for me, like I fix that stuff all the time.
Right.
So like, you know, like, those are, you know, the different avenues. But do I work with, you know, fucking 100 law enforcement teams? Absolutely not. I don't I don't do that whatsoever.
I don't know the first thing about fixing a aggressive dog. I don't need to. It's not part of my skill set. I mean, it's just not, and it's not anything I need. Yeah. So.
And they're also very rare, by the way.
Yeah, and that too.
Dog aggressive versus dog reactive, that's a whole other thing too. So this is the question I got just recently right now. Thoughts on personal protection dogs? So they asked me this, and I've asked this. Thoughts on personal protection dogs? So I've been asked this multiple times, and a lot of different like law enforcement trainers have different thoughts on it. I'm from California, so we have literally the fucking most strictest gun rules ever. So, you know, personal protection dogs are, you know, one of the things that we focus on consistently. But, you know, that's what the question was, you know, thoughts on personal protection dogs.
Okay, so over here on this end of the country in the Eastern time zone, the vast majority of personal protection dog trainers are scam artists. They're just training nasty, mean piece of shit dogs. And they're selling them to broke-ass motherfuckers who could not afford the legal problems if they actually bit someone, right? It's different if somebody broke in your house. Dude, if you break into my house, you're never leaving, right? You're never leaving. I don't care if you surrendered when I woke up. You're never leaving. But these guys because what I find with people that own personal protection dogs is they do dumb shit, and they want to show off to their friends, and they want to show what their dog does, and they bite people that they're not supposed to bite. And I don't know about out there. So, like, I'm real good friends with the Rodmans, right? Their dogs cost a lot of money because they sell them to people that can afford the dumb shit. They sell them to people that can afford to come down to their place every 2 weeks and do, or whatever it is, do their maintenance, do their follow along with it. I mean, that's why they're, you know, the amount of money that they are. But on the East Coast, they're cheap. They're bullshit. It's just a guy standing up against a fence with his dog being defensive. That's it. That's what they show over and over and over again. So I don't do personal protection. I won't do any bite work with civilian dogs whatsoever. My insurance department, my insurance agency will drop me. They've told me. Because I train police dogs, no personal protection dogs. So I keep a $2 million policy so I can bid on some contracts, and I can't. It took me forever to find them. So
we have a similar policy, and so when people come to me, so Oklahoma, so you know, I'm just north of Texas for those that don't know where I'm at. So Oklahoma has a very storied castle law. So you break into somebody's house, you're gonna get fucking shot for the most part in Oklahoma. So much so that they'll give you a medal here. Like you shoot somebody in Oklahoma, somebody breaks into your house, I mean, they'll give you the key to the city. And district attorneys, you know, are reluctant to file charges, rightfully so. And, you know, it's kind of one of those things. And when people call me, they're like, you know, I want a law enforcement dog, or I want a personal protection dog. I might just buy a Glock or a shotgun and invest the money in shooting. Because, you know, at this point, Oklahoma is 100% at fault state. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. So when a police dog bites somebody, and Eric can tell you about this, you're still at fault for the damage that's happened, just like any use of force. So if they choose to sue, no matter what the use of force is, they have to determine if you have qualified immunity or not, which means that they have to determine if your damage, whether it be shooting, tasing, biting him with a police dog, whatever it is justified under your official duties as a police officer, right? And whether they were justified given the circumstances under Graham versus Connor and some other shit. So when we start looking at that, police officers are tasked with arresting people and using dogs as a means of use of force. So they are generally granted qualified immunity in a normal situation. You take the police officer portion out and you bite somebody in the same situation, you're going to get fucking sued. So law enforcement dogs are trained and like they hunt human beings. So we go and find people that are trying to actively evade us. Whereas personal protection dogs are effectively defending people that are allegedly being accosted, right? So my whole thing is, if that's the case in Oklahoma, you just fucking shoot them, right? We shoot people here. And like it made world news. We kill people here. Like you break into our house, we're going to fucking shoot you. End of story. And same thing with Texas. You play fuck around in Texas, they'll kill you. Play fuck around in Florida, they will fucking kill you. So a dog is a lot more expensive than a firearm. So what the other portion of this that Eric is not really talking about is the people that can't own firearms for various reasons, and that they end up going to the dog side. The liability is still there, and you're still 100% at fault. So you bite somebody. I mean, if somebody break into my house right now, like I have 2 dogs that would absolutely try and murder them, but they probably would make it out of the house for various reasons. And if they manage to make it out of the house getting bit, they could sue me. And successfully so. They get shot and killed in my house, then, shit happens. And it's like, here's your key to the city, citizen. Good job. And they give me a handshake and we go on our way. So the other portion of that too is the financial aspect. So Eric mentioned a little bit, but the other thing is, we get paid anywhere from $15,000 to $20-something thousand to train dual purpose dogs. And that, like, we schedule out a block of time for that, right? So we have enough demand that I have a backlog. Like, I'm constantly like rolling, dude. I have 17 dogs in process right now, dual purpose dogs. So when a private person comes to me and they're like, I want a personal protection dog, I'm like, all right, well, I don't really have time. And if we did, it would cost this much because I'm taking a slot of time to work this dog to for you. And this is what this slot of time costs. On top of that, personal protection clients routinely are the most fucking impossible people to please. They want like dogs that do object guards and all kinds of fucking crazy ass bullshit, and they don't want to fucking pay for it. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it for $50,000. Right? And I've had one person take me up on it, and I'm like, yeah, okay. But for the most part, I'm like, no, I mean, I'm not. Whereas in law enforcement, we have national or state certification standards, and I teach handler schools, and I know this and this and this and this and this and this is what we have to teach. I don't have to meet some fucking random ass standard that they saw on fucking YouTube, and they're like, well, I want my dog to do this, and I'm like, cool, go find somebody to fucking do it. That's not my thing. And so routinely what I find with personal protection people is their budgets don't meet their, like Eric mentioned, their ability to handle a lawsuit for qualified, because they're not going to be granted qualified immunity. And 2, people that don't have an expectation relative to their budget. So and they're like, oh, I know somebody can do it. I'm like, have at it. I mean, it's not my thing. I mean, I tell people, like, go buy a shotgun. Somebody breaks in your house, shoot him in the face. And go buy a dog. Go get a dog at the pound that fucking barks.
Dude, that's like the one thing. That's like the one thing. It's like in California. It's like because we deal with so much. I mean, like the gun laws are so crazy here. So like a lot of times now, it's like we deal with a lot of people who aren't gonna wait that long. Who deal with home invasions. Who deal with all this other stuff. And like a lot of it's like, okay, cool. Like, they want to buy a dog, and I'm trying to teach them how to like deal with their dog. And teach the dog to deal with that stuff too. So like that's one thing that we deal with quite a bit over here is like the personal protection aspect of it, but making sure the dog's not a liability, because like as like Ted was saying, Ted, you said it's like there's no granted immunity to this. Like literally, if your dog bites, you are subject to whatever the hell happens after that. And there's no real, like, like, okay, I was defending my house, but in California, like, it's literally Sioux country, so everyone can
what's as happy as Sioux happy as the fucking Ninth Circuit is. I can't imagine owning a dog that willingly I can't imagine the circumstances that would require me as a private citizen to bite somebody. I get home invasions and all that other shit, but I mean, in knowing that the fallout from that and just seeing what there's a case that happened recently in fucking San Diego, and I mean recently, like it was just published just now in the Ninth Circuit, and they denied qualified immunity for a police officer that had a legitimate bite. It wasn't a Fourth Amendment violation, but I'm not really comfortable talking about why it was denied, but they denied qualified immunity for a legitimate bite for a police officer. So you want to tell me that some fuckface breaking into your house and you manage not to kill him, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, it's justified. No, I mean, the fucking district attorneys and the court system in California is completely fucked. And it is, I don't live there, but I mean, I visit and it's great. And I love it there. And one of our business partners live there, but I can't imagine owning a dog that is trained to bite people. And because of shitbags in California that commit crimes knowingly turn around and sue police officers, not even for canine, just in general for use of force.
That's why
you got hurt being arrested. Well, yeah. Like, I mean, shit. I mean, what do you? I mean, the Ninth Circuit allows it. And then Ninth Circuit not only allows it, but they uphold a denial of qualified immunity in a lot of cases. There are some times when it should be. Like, I get it. Like, we don't bite people that we shouldn't bite. Like, I get it. Like, that's legit. But
that's why no one else anywhere in the country acknowledges the Ninth Circuit's rulings. Nobody.
Nobody gets
They're irrelevant everywhere else in the United States.
Yeah.
That's why I've told my girlfriend who owns Aussie. And then when I have like Cerberus, I was like, same day I was like, whatever. If they run in, if they come in, they're not leaving. Like, like that's pretty much it. I was like, come in the house, ain't leaving the house. Like that's pretty much how it goes, especially with that stuff. Because obviously like in California, like everyone's so fucking, sue happy. Like you want to break in and they get sued for fucking breaking through a window and all this other bullshit. But like, now, yeah, it's like, it's like, come in the house, you're good. Like, that's the one thing, like, we do with like a lot of our personal protection dogs, because in that going back into, the training of the dogs, like when you train a law enforcement dog, when you train, pet, when you train personal protection, for me, like, when I do both of those things, or even sport, they're all adequately indifferent. Like, you have to train separately, but train the same at the same time. That's like one of the big things, it's not the same perspective all the time. It's not the same, training all the time. Like these dogs, definitely need different things, throughout the training. So I mean, like, that's one of like the cool things that I like bringing like with you guys on, and, just like what we do and like, what you guys do. I mean, like that, I think that's awesome. Let's see if we have anything else here.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on my boat here shortly and do a night cruise.
Oh, I know.
Me and the wife.
Super jealous of your guys' property now, Eric. I see that. Like, you guys live on a lake.
Yeah, we live at a lake here in Ohio, and it's actually super cheap to live here. It's pretty good. It's pretty cool. Ted's been here. It's not bad.
No, it doesn't suck.
See you guys. I mean, I think we should probably close it out here. But I definitely thank you guys for being on this. You guys are definitely, I mean, as far as what you guys do, top of the line on everything. With Torchlight, Vaness, HRD. Shout out to Alicia with the Working Dog Dry Goods, and everyone else. I appreciate you guys for coming out and spending your time and spending whatever hour and fucking 48 minutes with me doing this stuff, and also appreciate you guys for donating to the Primal Canine Food Program. Just to let you guys know, we've been serving around 15 families, which is, I mean, 5 times that. So whatever that is, every single week. So, you know, it's definitely been helping out. But, you know, I appreciate you guys for donating to that stuff. And, you know, thanks for all the work that you guys do. Also, I need to go out there and see you guys. And I need to start working some dogs. So I appreciate you guys for being on, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you having us, man. Thank you. I like your format. It's good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, Mike, I forgot. I wanted to ask you, are you, what's your nationality?
I'm a variety. So
last time you and I did a live, I got about 200 new followers. Every single one of them was Iranian. Now, which is fine. That's great. But I was like, wow, I wonder if Mike's Iranian. And he's got a huge Iranian following. But,
so my ex-wife is Persian. Oh, she's Iranian. So, like, you know, I have, you know, that. My daughter's part Persian, but Samoan, Japanese, Welsh, Spanish, and I think Puerto Rican or something like that. So, I mean, I don't even know. That's what my documentary's there, because I have a large variety in the background.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So, all right, guys, thank you for having us, man. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, guys. And again, for people watching this, make sure you hit up Working Dog Radio, Working Dog Drives Good, Torchlight, Vaness, the whole entire crew. You know, thanks, guys. Appreciate you.